It started with her laugh echoing from the next room and the way he looked at me when he thought no one was watching. We were supposed to be just friends. Always had been. Me and Connor. And now, here I was, sitting on his living room couch, while his girlfriend laughed on the other side of the wall, and he passed me a slice of cold pizza like nothing had shifted between us. But it had. Something had. I felt it the second he brushed my fingers, just barely, when he handed me the plate. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't romantic. Just his hand grazing mine. But I noticed. I always noticed with him. My name's Marcus. I'm 24. Graphic designer by day. Introvert by nature. I like quiet cafes, Sunday thrift store trips, and rereading books I already love because they don't surprise me. People surprise me. But Connor was different. He was that rare kind of person who makes you feel seen without saying a word. We met 4 years ago, at a mutual friend's barbecue. He was wearing a plain gray t-shirt and jeans, nothing flashy, just real. His eyes were the first thing I noticed, not because they were striking, but because they looked like they'd been through something. There was weight behind them, not sadness exactly, more like depth. The kind of depth you want to dive into, even if you know you'll lose air along the way. We became friends without trying. That's what made it dangerous. He'd show up at my place with 2 iced coffees and no explanation. We'd talk about stupid things, video games, bad movies, weird dreams, but underneath all of it, I kept catching moments, little flashes, glances that lingered too long. Jokes that felt like maybe they weren't just jokes. And then there were the silences. Not awkward ones. The kind that buzzed with something unsaid still. Nothing ever happened, because Connor had a girlfriend. Still does. Her name's Emma. She's kind, funny, the sort of person who fills a room. I don't hate her. I couldn't. But when she moved in with Connor a few months ago, something in me twisted. Tonight was a game night with friends, but one by one, people bailed. In the end, it was just the 3 of us. Emma had gone to the bedroom to take a call, and then it was just Connor and me on opposite sides of the couch, the half-empty pizza box between us, and that quiet humming tension we never talked about settling in like dust. The apartment was warm, lived in, a place where shoes were kicked off and candles burned down to the wick. A soft indie track played in the background, his playlist. I was sure of it, and Connor leaned back, arms stretched over the cushions, close enough that if I shifted even a little, our shoulders would touch. "You okay?" he asked, tilting his head toward me. His voice was low, just enough to cut through the music. I nodded. Yeah, just tired. But that wasn't true. I wasn't tired. I was vibrating beneath my skin, every nerve alive with the awareness of how close he was. I could smell him. Detergent, faint sweat, something warm, familiar, dangerous. He turned to face me fully. "You sure were? You've been quiet all night." "I'm always quiet. Not with me." That made me pause. I looked at him, and he held my gaze for longer than he should have. And for the briefest second, it felt like something cracked between us, like the glass of whatever boundary we'd built had begun to hairline under the weight of what we weren't saying. Then Emma laughed again from the bedroom, and he blinked, sat back, gone, just like that, but not really, because his hand was still resting on the couch, inches from mine. And even in the silence, I could feel it, the pulse of something waiting, something about to change. Connor and I had a rhythm. That's what made it dangerous. When people spend enough time together, they either drift apart or fall into sync, and we were the kind who locked into place without trying. It started with a stupid argument over a bag of chips during a group hike. I liked spicy. He hated anything with flavor. That was our first real conversation. Me teasing him for being basic. Him calling me bougie with that crooked smirk I'd come to memorize. We ended up walking at the back of the group for the next 4 miles, arguing about music, food, and the moral dilemma of killing off main characters in video games. He called me dramatic. I called him heartless. It was the beginning of everything. After that, we just kept showing up in each other's lives. He'd dragged me to basketball courts, even though I had zero coordination. I'd make him sit through long indie movies with ambiguous endings that made him groan. Every time I'd say something weird or offbeat, he wouldn't look away. He'd lean in, like he genuinely wanted to understand me. Like he didn't mind the mess. We had our things. Like the Thursday beer and burger nights at Barney's Bar Hour, unofficial safe space. Or the fact that he always texted me at exactly 11:11 when he couldn't sleep, just to say you up. As if we were 13-year-olds whispering in the dark. But we never talked about emotions. Not directly. Our closeness existed in the gray. Spacing half-jokes and eye rolls, and that stupid nickname he gave me, Mar. I hated it. I loved it. "So how's the sad artist life going?" he asked one night, legs stretched across my coffee table. Socks mismatched as always, better than the emotionally repressed pay coach life. I shot back, sipping a Coke I didn't want, but held just to keep my hands busy. He laughed loud, sharp, real. That sound always caught me off guard, like a match struck in a quiet room. "You're the only person who says stuff like that to me, because I know you're not really as simple as you pretend to be." His eyes softened then, and he stared at me for a beat longer than normal. Not in a dramatic way. Just like he was taking inventory me, the moment, maybe even himself. There were always these seconds. These quiet gaps between banter where I didn't know if I was imagining it. Like when his knee would press against mine for just a little longer than necessary. Or how his voice dipped when he asked if I was really okay. The way he brushed my hoodie hood straight whenever it bunched at the back of my neck too. Soft to mean nothing, too casual to mean something. Then came the complication, and it wasn't huge, not yet, but it was enough to shift things. Connor's apartment lease was ending. The landlord wanted to renovate and triple the rent. Emma had already offered for him to move into her place full-time, but he hesitated. He told me one night while we were walking to get tacos. The city was buzzing with soft Friday night energy, warm lights reflecting off wet pavement from a street cleaning earlier in the evening. "I don't know," he said, stuffing his hands in his jacket pockets. "It just feels fast, you know. You've been dating for almost 2 years. Yeah, but living with someone full-time is different. I'm not sure I'm ready for that kind of exposure." "Exposure?" I laughed. "What? Like she's going to discover your secret stamp collection?" "I'm serious, man." I looked at him, then really looked. And there it was again, that flicker, something unspoken sitting behind his words. "You could stay with me," I offered before I even thought it through. He blinked. "What?" "I mean, just for a few weeks until you figure it out. My couch is yours. You basically live at my place anyway." He smiled, but it was a different kind of smile this time. Smaller, unsure. "You'd be cool with that?" I wouldn't offer, if I wasn't. And that's when it happened. That moment of pause. He looked at me not like a friend being offered a place to crash, but like someone seeing a door open he wasn't sure he was allowed to walk through. "Thanks, Mar." There it was again. That name, said softer than usual this time. More like a secret. I pretended to check my phone just to look away, because if I kept looking at him, I was going to say something I couldn't take back. The next night, he stayed over for the first time, not as a guest, not as a drunk friend crashing on the couch, but with a duffel bag and toothbrush, and the quiet understanding that this wasn't temporary. Emma still didn't know. She thought he was staying with another buddy until his new place opened up. That part made my stomach twist. Not because I was complicit, but because I liked it. I liked that I was the one he came to when things were uncertain. I liked that my apartment, my space, was where he landed. I watched him brush his teeth in my bathroom mirror, shirtless, his hair messy, and I thought, this is going to ruin me. But I didn't stop it. I didn't want to. It started with a broken water heater and a power outage. That Saturday, the universe decided to play a cruel joke on me. My apartment building had been old since the day it was built. When the lights went out mid-morning, I figured it was temporary, a fuse or something minor. But an hour passed, then two. When I called the landlord, all I got was a tired sigh and a yeah. There's a line burst in the basement. Till be out for the next 24 hours. No heat, no hot water, no electricity. Connor had been out getting groceries, but when he returned and I explained, he just shrugged and said, could be worse. At least we've got chips and a charged phone. But the temperature dropped by evening. Fast. We piled blankets on the couch, candles flickering in random corners of the room. The kind of setup that would have felt romantic if we weren't pretending it wasn't. If he didn't have someone else. If my stomach didn't twist every time our shoulders touched. I was on one side of the couch. He was on the other. A shared blanket over both of us. Netflix dead. Phones dying. Just quiet. Heavy. Warm. Dangerous. Quiet. Connor yawned, stretching, his arms above his head, shirt lifting just enough to show the edge of his waistline. I tried not to look. I failed. Damn, it's cold, he muttered, rubbing his hands together. This is like camping, except without the fun or the fire. We could make s'mores over the stove, I joked weakly. No electricity, remember, right? Another long silence. Then, he nudged me with his foot under the blanket. You. Good. Yeah. You. He shrugged. You always say yeah when I ask. Doesn't mean much anymore. His words hit differently in the dim light. Like truth stripped of humor. I swallowed. I don't really know how to say anything else. He looked at me then. Really looked. You don't have to. That should have been comforting. But it made my chest ache. Eventually, he leaned back, head against the pillow, eyes soft. It's freezing, dude. We might have to do something about body heat. I blinked at him. What? He smiled, teasing. But there was something behind it, like maybe he wasn't completely kidding. I mean, it's science. Two bodies shared warmth. Don't make it weird. I laughed, nervous, awkward, too quick. You're making it weird. And then he did it. He shifted closer, slowly, casually, until our sides were touching under the blanket. Thighs aligned, shoulders brushing. He didn't say anything after that. Just stayed there, as if this was normal. As if we hadn't just crossed a line so faint, neither of us could admit it was real. I stopped breathing for a second. My body went still, hyperware. Every part of me caught in that fragile moment between wanting and fear. My thoughts spiraled. What are you doing? This is nothing. This is everything. He doesn't know. He does. He has to. Stop feeling. Don't ruin this. And then, his hand, just resting on the couch. So close to mine, I could feel the warmth radiating off his skin. Not touching, just there. Like gravity was daring me to move. I didn't, but I wanted to. God, I wanted to. He tilted his head toward me. His voice came out quiet, barely more than a breath. You ever think about how weird timing is? I turned my head slowly. What do you mean, like, people come into your life, and you don't realize how much they matter until it's already complicated? I didn't respond. I couldn't. My throat had gone dry. My entire body was screaming with the need to say something. Honest, but I stayed frozen, afraid that if I opened my mouth, it would all come spilling out. He shifted again, just enough to pull the blanket tighter around both of us. My arm brushed his, skin to skin. I felt every nerve fire like it was the first time I'd ever been touched. Emma wants to take a weekend trip, he said, voice suddenly serious. Some romantic cabin thing, just us. No distractions. Oh, I told her I'd think about it, but the idea of being that isolated with her, I don't. No. I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't sure what he was really saying. She's great, I said, finally. She cares about you. She does, he agreed. Then, a pause. But sometimes I feel like I'm playing the version of me she sees, and I can't tell if that's love or performance. I looked at him, this close. I could see the small scar near his eyebrow, the way his bottom lip curved when he was trying not to speak something honest. "You don't perform with me?" I asked. Quiet. He shook his head. "You never needed me to." And then something shifted. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't lean in for a kiss or say something poetic. He just let his head fall sideways, resting on my shoulder like it belonged there, and I let him. I didn't breathe, didn't move. I just sat there, heart pounding, wondering how something so simple could feel like the most intimate moment of my life. His hand slid under the blanket. It wasn't grabbing mine. It wasn't intentional, but his pinky brushed mine and stayed there. Neither of us pulled away. The room felt smaller, warmer, more dangerous. I closed my eyes. I told myself it meant nothing, but it did. It meant everything. The power came back the next morning, but nothing else returned to normal. Connor had gone out for a walk while I showered, and the apartment felt too quiet without him, too big, like his presence filled some space I hadn't realized was hollow. Until now, I stood by the window with a towel over my head, watching through the fogged glass as he crossed the street with a coffee in each hand. He moved like he always did and hurried, easy, like the world would bend around him, before he'd ever have to rush. He smiled when he saw me watching. Something about that smile gutted me. When he came in, he handed me the coffee wordlessly and sat on the couch like we hadn't nearly crossed a line last night. Or maybe we had, and we were both pretending not to notice. He talked about the walk, the cold air, the guy he saw walking to huskies that looked more wolf than dog. I nodded, laughed where I was supposed to, but inside, everything was tangled. Every glance, every silence between us felt louder than the words we actually said. He left that afternoon to meet Emma, said it was just dinner, said he'd be back later. I stared at the door after he left for a long time, and that's when I knew something had to give, because I couldn't live in this in-between anymore. Not like this. Not when it hurt every time he left. Not when I woke up reaching for something I didn't have the right to want. I didn't sleep that night when he returned. The apartment was dark, except for the kitchen light I'd left on. He kicked off his shoes like always, dropped his keys in the bowl by the door. "Hey," he said softly, "you still up?" I nodded from the couch. Couldn't sleep. He walked toward me slowly, like he knew something had shifted too. Maybe dinner with her clarified it. Maybe it made it worse. He sat beside me, close, not touching. "You okay?" he asked. "No." The word came out before I could dress it up. His brows lifted. Concern flickered across his face. "What's wrong?" I looked at him, then really looked at the lines around his eyes, the way his hair had flattened from a hoodie, the shape of his mouth when he was nervous. And I said the thing I wasn't supposed to say. "I don't know how to do this anymore." He was still. "Do what? This? Us being friends, pretending like nothing's changed when we both know it has." His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Marcus, I can't keep sitting next to you like I don't feel what I feel. I can't keep laughing at jokes and eating burgers and watching you be with someone else, knowing I want to be the one you come home to." Silence fell like glass breaking quiet, jagged, dangerous. He stared at me, eyes wide, jaw slightly clenched, like he'd been bracing for a hit. I didn't mean to. I started, but he stopped me. "No," he said, voice quiet. "Don't take it back." I blinked. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like he was trying to find the words buried in the grain of the wood. "I've been trying not to ruin this," he whispered. "You have no idea how hard I've been trying." I exhaled, barely. "Since when?" "Since always," he said. "Since the day you laughed at me over spicy chips. Since I started looking for excuses to be near you. Since I realized I missed you before you even left the room." I was frozen. "Emma's great," he said. She really is. But with her, I'm performing. Like I'm trying to meet expectations I don't even believe in. He finally looked at me. But with you? His voice caught. I don't have to pretend. You see me? And that scares the hell out of me. I nodded slowly. It scares me too. We sat in the quiet, not awkward, just full. I thought if I ignored it, it'd go away, he said. But it didn't. It got louder. You're in everything now. My heart pounded like it had been waiting its whole life to hear those words. I kept telling myself I couldn't do this. He added, softer now, that I couldn't hurt her, that I couldn't risk messing up what we have. But the truth is I already did. The second I started holding my breath every time you looked at me like this, I didn't realize I was crying until he reached up, thumb brushing under my eye gently, almost reverently. Marcus, he said, just my name, but in a way that sounded like a promise. I turned toward him fully, my voice cracked. Then what are we doing? He hesitated, then leaned in slowly, giving me all the time in the world to stop him. I didn't. His forehead rested against mine, eyes fluttering shut. We're doing what we should have done a long time ago, he whispered. And then finally, his lips brushed mine. Not hungry, not rushed, just honest. It was soft and aching, and full of everything we'd held back. 1,000 unspoken moments poured into one breath. My hands found the sides of his face. His fingers curled into my shirt. We pulled back only when we needed air. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I don't know how this works, he said. I don't know how to uncomplicate my life. We don't have to figure it all out tonight, I whispered. But you want this? He asked. I've wanted this every day for the last 4 years. He smiled. That real smile, the one that cracked his face open like sunlight through a storm. The one I had never seen him give anyone else. I'm terrified, he admitted. Me too. Good, he said, softly resting his hand over mine. At least we're terrified together. We stayed like that on the couch, foreheads together, fingers intertwined. The room filled with the quiet relief of finally being seen. We didn't rush anything after the kiss. We didn't leap into each other's arms or throw logic out the window. We just stayed there, quiet, close, breathing the same air like we'd only just realized we could. Connor rested his head against my shoulder again, just like he had that night under the blanket, but this time it meant something. This time, it wasn't wrapped in denial or hesitation. It was soft, safe, real. His thumb traced absent circles over the back of my hand, and neither of us said much for a while. Eventually, he broke the silence with a quiet chuckle. What? I asked, brushing my thumb gently along his knuckles. He tilted his head toward me, a sheepish smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I was just thinking about how smug you're gonna be now that you know I've been into you all this time. I grinned. I've earned it. He laughed again, a deep, low sound that made my chest ache in the best way. I mean it, I said, glancing at him. This doesn't feel real yet. Connor leaned back a little so he could look at me properly. It is. I nodded, the emotion welling up again, but quieter now, like the difference between a storm and steady rain. Softer, still powerful. I keep thinking we're gonna wake up and pretend this didn't happen, I admitted. He frowned, gently pulling my hand into his lap. No, we're not pretending anymore. I'm done pretending. That hit something deep. I could feel the shift in him, like the weight he'd been carrying had finally dropped. Like we were breathing cleaner air. So, I said, a little more cautious now, what does this mean? I mean, Emma. His expression sobered, but he didn't pull away. It means I have to be honest with her, and soon. She deserves that. She does, and I hate that I waited this long. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair off his forehead. You weren't ready. No, he said, but I am now. The confidence in his voice was quiet, but steady. not for show. Just the kind of certainty that grows from facing fear and choosing truth anyway. He shifted on the couch, drawing his legs up slightly, body angled toward mine in that open, familiar way I'd always loved. "I never thought I'd be able to say any of this," he said. "Not to anyone, and definitely not to you. But you've always made space for me to be. More what? More me," he said simply. And that was the moment I realized we'd already started something. Long before the kiss. Long before last night. It had been building for years in glances, in small kindnesses, in the comfort of being known. We didn't need labels. Not yet. We didn't need to plan the next 6 months, or figure out how the world would react. We just needed to sit in the quiet, honest now. But Connor, of course, broke the silence in his usual way. "So, does this mean I get to steal your hoodies now?" I smirked. "You already do." "Yeah, but now it's official." "And what makes it official?" He grinned, leaning in. "The kiss, the confession, and this." He tugged the blanket off the back of the couch and threw it around our shoulders again, pulling me in close. This blanket cocoon of emotional vulnerability. I burst out laughing. "You're such an idiot. But you love it." I looked at him then, fully, without hesitation. "Yeah, I do." He blinked, like he hadn't expected me to say it out loud so soon. Then, quietly, "Say that again." "I love it. I love you." His mouth parted slightly, and then he exhaled, long and deep, like that truth had settled into his bones. "I love you too," he said. We didn't need fireworks. We didn't need a soundtrack. Just that couch, the soft hum of the fridge kicking back on, and the shared warmth between us. Later, as we lay side by side, legs tangled, his head on my chest, he whispered, "We're gonna mess this up sometimes. You know, probably. But I want to try." Me too. We talked about everything and nothing until the sky outside turned pale with morning. About the first time he realized he might like me. About how I'd worn that awful yellow sweater one day and he couldn't stop staring. About his fear of not being enough. About mine too. And somewhere between those long, sleepy conversations and the promise of trying, I realized something we'd both been waiting for permission to want each other. Now we didn't need it. Now we had us. A week later, we went grocery shopping together. Not the most romantic thing in the world, I know, but that's what made it feel real. No drama, no hidden glances. Just us pushing a cart through the produce section, debating the difference between kale and spinach like a couple that had been doing this for years. Connor nudged my shoulder with his. "You're stalling. Pick one." "I don't like the idea of chewing leaves for dinner," says the man who made me try beet juice last month. "You survived." He gave me that look again, the one that made the air feel warmer somehow. The kind of look that didn't need words to say, "You're mine," and I'm good with that. It was subtle, but every little thing between us had shifted. The way he touched the small of my back when we crossed the street. The way our fingers brushed when reaching for the same snack. The way he leaned in when he laughed. Like his body couldn't help but close the space between us anymore. And yet, we were careful, not secretive, just ... thoughtful. Emma had taken the news hard, and even though it wasn't dramatic, it mattered to both of us that he didn't rush from one world into another without taking some time to breathe. We agreed to keep it slow, private, gentle, but it was still real. That night, we sat on my balcony under a soft blanket. City lights blinked beyond the railing, and a breeze tugged at Connor's hoodie. One of mine, of course, already claimed as ours. He leaned his head on my shoulder. "Do you think people ever really figure this out?" he asked. "Love, yeah. Or if we all just sort of stumble through and hope we don't wreck the people we care about." I thought for a moment. I think the people who care not to wreck others are already doing it better than most. He smiled faintly. "That's a low bar. It's an honest one." He was quiet for a long time, then said, "I want to do this right, with you." I turned toward him, threading my fingers with his. You already are. And then, as if sealing something between us, he pulled something from his hoodie pocket. A key, my spare key. He held it out awkwardly. I found this on your kitchen counter. I wasn't sure if you meant to leave it out or... I did, I said, heartbeat skipping. Oh. He looked at it in his palm, then up at me. It felt... big. It is, I said, but not too big. He nodded slowly and slipped it into his pocket again, like it belonged there. We didn't say much after that. Just sat, listening to the city murmur below us. The world kept turning, and for once, I wasn't chasing it. I was right where I needed to be. Before bed, he brushed his teeth in the bathroom again, humming off-key, the way he always did when he thought no one was listening. I leaned against the doorframe and watched him for a moment, his reflection, his ease, the small rituals that meant we were sharing more than space now. We were building something. He caught me watching and grinned. Toothpaste foam, making him look ridiculous. You're staring, he said, mouth full. I like the view. He rolled his eyes, but couldn't stop smiling. Later, in bed, he reached for my hand in the dark. Not dramatically, not even consciously, I think. Just ... reflex. Like it had always been mine. Fingers intertwined, he whispered. You think we're gonna screw this up? Definitely, I said with a smirk. But I also think we'll figure it out. He exhaled, low and content, and there, in the quiet, our joined hands resting between us. I realized something. The best love stories don't start with fireworks. They start with honesty, with slow mornings and awkward confessions, with bad jokes, quiet forgiveness, and the decision every day to stay. We were far from perfect, but we were finally real, and that was enough.